Hello and welcome back to 30 Days to Learn Photoshop. This is day 7, working with layers. I'm Ben Gribbin, and in today's lesson we are going to learn how to work with layers. So we're going to look at how to create, how to delete them, how to move them around, how to organize them. So let's go ahead and switch over to Photoshop. And you'll see we have the course kind of project open. We're going to be using this website design, which has been created entirely in Photoshop to use as our project that we're going to be working on. It's going to help us demonstrate some of the techniques we wish to demonstrate. So we're going to be showing you how to create layers in this lesson. So that's going to be the starting point, is how to make layers. Now we did say we were going to use shortcuts as much as we possibly can. So to make a shortcut, or the shortcut for making a layer, is Command Shift N, or that would be Control Shift N on a Windows PC, and you get this nice little new layer palette. So all you need to do is type in a layer name. That's good practice. You should probably consider doing that. So let's type in a layer name. This layer is just going to be an empty layer, just so we can show you how layers work. So let's go to layer 1, like so, and that creates a layer down here. So we've made the layer. How would we go about moving it? So I want to show you how layers work. As we explained in the previous lesson, they are effectively like sheets of paper, but cut out and laid over each other. So a layer that's on top of another will not show, or will show rather than the one behind it. So let me just demonstrate that. This screenshot here is actually overlaid on top of this background. So if we're to move our screenshot around, because it's a layer or a group that we've made there, we need to select the group. But once we can do that, you see this is actually overlaid over the top of that background section there. And that's the way you're going to work in Photoshop. You need to layer things up, working from the back to the front, building up layers. We've got quite a lot of layers in this file, so we can show you how to delete some layers, just so you know how to do it. Let's delete this screenshot here. All you need to do is, using the move tool, which we're going to cover in the next lesson, is select the layer you want to delete and press delete. So let me show you that again. All you do is to edit, undo, delete layer, and just click on it and delete it, just like that. Very, very easy. Works really well. That's how you delete layers in Photoshop. And also, if you want to delete them using this panel here, you've got these little options down here. This one here creates a new layer, just a quick little button to create one, and this one here deletes layers. And it will always ask you, when you're using the panel option, do you really want to delete the layer 17? And you can press yes or no. And also you can tick this, don't show again. But I like to leave that on, just in case I ever do it by accident. So that's how you create and delete layers. So now we're going to show you how to readjust layers, how to bring a layer forwards. Let's say, for example, we want to bring this background layer in front of this screenshot layer. All you need to do is click on the layer in the layers palette and make sure it changes to this blue colour. Grab hold of it with your mouse, and you see that hand tool has changed from pointing like so, to grabbed hand as soon as you start moving, and that just means that you are moving that layer. And you'll see that it basically turns the divider between each layer black with two extra thick lines top and bottom, and that means that's where you're going to drop that layer. So let's bring it right to the front, drop it at the top. You see that that black line shows we're going to do it at the top. Do that, and you can see we've then adjusted the layer so it is now on top of all the others. So it's very easy. It just gets slightly complicated when you have so many layers, when you're trying to remember what they all are. Hence why you need to label them. And also, speaking of organisation, something that you're going to want to introduce into your work, especially when you get complicated designs like this, is to start using groups. So we're going to show you how to make a group and what a group is. So let's go right to the top, and we're going to go to layer, new, and new group. And also, if you want, you can just press Command G. that will make a group very, very quickly. So let's just remove this from within our layer. It's accidentally got in there. You can see it automatically names a layer, or a group, sorry, group 10. So we don't want it to be called that. We want it to be called the rectangle. And this is going to be just for our own reference so that we know what's within the layer or this group. Now, groups are made up of individual layers, and you can add layers into a group, or you can create a group and then add layers afterwards. So let's take, for example, this menu bar here. We can actually drag this into the group we've just created. The group we created is at the top, it's at the very top of our layer palette. So in order to get the layer here, without moving it in the document, into our group, all we need to do is click on it so it goes blue, and again do the hand grab, drag it up to the top. If you take it off the sidebar, the more you take it off, the faster it'll go. So the closer we are to the sidebar panel, it'll go slower, and the higher we are, the faster it goes. And we can just then literally hover over the group. Notice it's slightly different. We're not looking for the dividing line this time. We're looking for it to highlight the entire group with a black square, a black rectangle, and drop it in like so. So you literally just drop and drag it into that group, and now that group will contain that layer. And then you can start to see the benefits of groups. If we were to add all the text that we have around this document, so let's add all of the text into this group. If we just go do that very quickly, pop that in there. We'll also stick this in. You can put groups within groups as well. So you see we've just grabbed hold of a group. So we'll take that up to the group. Automatically it puts whatever layer you've just dragged in to the very bottom of the group. But if you wanted, when you highlight in the group, you can drag it in and drop it within the layers in the group wherever you like. So that might make a difference to how it's displayed. But now you can see we've added all of those documents into this group. So we've got a whole range of layers organized into a group, and we can then just turn those on and off like so. And we can also move them and resize them as if they were one layer. But to do that, we need to go on the move tool and make sure we've got group selected. So then whenever we're on a group, it will give us the transform selection, or the transform tool, for the whole group. I'll just show you that again. You see we've resized all of those elements together as one, which does save us a lot of time. One little tool tip for the layers panel is the eye tool. You might have seen us using it just then. What this does is it toggles a layer's visibility on or off, so that when you then go to save this file, it will actually be invisible even though technically it's there. And you can use that just when you're working on the background of something, just to hide something temporarily to make sure it's looking good, and also when you're showing people your designs and things like that, how they're constructed. So that's groups and layers. Now we need to look at some of the kind of color modes and settings for layers and groups. So this rectangle layer we have here, the rectangle group, it's filled with about 5 or 6 layers, but you can see it's set the color mode, or the blending mode, to pass through. Not sure why it's done that. I think I might have clicked it by accident at some point. So this should normally be set to normal, but if you start changing the color mode, it will start changing the outlook of this layer. So you will need to look up blending modes to find out what those do. You've then got the opacity here in the sidebar panel. This allows us to change a layer or a group's opacity level, so we can completely or just slightly hide it like so. So that's going to be quite useful when you're working with your designs, and that'll work on shapes, text. If we go down to this text layer here, it will actually make it less apparent and more opaque and things like that. So that's the opacity tool. The fill tool works on shapes more than anything, and also when you've got styles applied to them. So if we make a rectangle, when we make the rectangle, let's just added that into the group. When we make the rectangle, if we set the opacity to 0, it's completely invisible. However, if we were to add a stroke, which we'll show you how to do further in the course, and press OK, when we set the fill to 0, it will delete the fill, but it retains all of its effects. So this is a way of being able to make kind of outlined boxes and shapes and apply styles to things that you want to be semi-transparent. And that's how you do that. But then we can also tweak the opacity of the whole thing. So if we change the opacity, that will change the strokes opacity as well. The fill is just relating to the shape fill that's been applied there and not the effects. And then there's just some more options that you will notice here. This is one you may need to use at some point, the lock tool. And what this will do now is, even though we can kind of select the layers and elements around it, that group that we created, the rectangle group with all these elements in, we cannot change that. All the other elements around it are changing, but even though we're clicking on it, we could try get the brush. If we got the brush to try and paint on it, it wouldn't do it. It won't allow us to do that. So you can use that to lock up an image or a photograph or whatever you've been working on in Photoshop, so that you can't change it by accident, you can't accidentally move things around. It's just good to prevent mistakes, to lock it off if you were sending it to a client perhaps for viewing. That's what the lock tool is used for. And then we've got these options down here. We've got the ability to add adjustment layers, which again we're going to cover in further into the course, and also the quick shortcuts here for creating a group. If you click on that, it will make a group. If we click on this, it makes a new layer, and if we click on that, it will actually delete whichever layer or group you've got selected. So that's what layers are, that's where they are, that's how to use the layer panel and how to add, edit and make groups. So in this lesson we've learned how to create layers and groups, and we've looked in general at organisation in Photoshop. We've also considered the layer properties, for example fill, opacity, how to lock them, and why you would set a layer to be locked. And your lesson task is to practice by creating a group in your own document called first group, and then put a layer inside of that called layer 01. Then delete the layer, as we've shown you, and then lock the group. So that's just good practice for working with layers and groups. It'll help you get familiar with that. Next time on 30 Days to Learn Photoshop, we'll be looking at the Move tool. Thanks for listening.